The latest from the NHC pointing to Hurricane Elsa weakening ahead of a landfall later today, this Wednesday, July 7th, as the storm hits the Tampa Bay area at this hour. We begin a live meteorologist Q&A here in this midnight edition of Tracking the Tropics. Hey there, everybody. JB Buno alongside Fox 16 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baskin. Welcome him back to the program, everybody, from Little Rock, Arkansas. We're burning the midnight oil here, so to speak. But really, at this hour, Hurricane Elsa continuing to make its presence felt here across the Tampa Bay area. You're looking here live at Max Defender 8. Areas like Tampa, St. Pete, Bradenton, Sarasota, even Lakeland now starting to see some of the worst of what we're going to see here from Elsa in the hours ahead. We are live for one reason here at this hour, and it's to answer your questions out of the Facebook Live comment section. You can use hashtag HeyJeff, hashtag HeyJB, and we'll get to your comments here, everybody, out of the Facebook Live comment section on the WFLA Facebook page. We already see some of those questions and comments coming in. If you don't want your name and your comment to be featured here, everybody, on Tracking the Tropics, just don't use a hashtag. We'll let your comment scroll through on by without us mentioning your comment. But if you want your question to be answered, use hashtag HeyJeff or hashtag HeyJB. And we'll start with this one here from Nick, Jeff. It's coming in just in the last several seconds. Hashtag HeyJB. Where is this storm? And it's a little bit off of our coast here in the Tampa Bay area.
Well, it's not too far away from the coastline, but the center of it is still well offshore, far enough that even though it's a hurricane, you're not really going to get hurricane force wind gusts getting close to land based on that. Maximum winds are what the strongest winds are at any point in the storm. So it really could just be one single point that you have a wind of 74 miles per hour or greater, and it's classified as a hurricane. That doesn't mean that in all this area that you see these rain beds coming through, you're getting winds that strong. The winds are not nearly that strong over land. We've seen wind gusts about 30, possibly up to about 50 miles per hour. I did see, I think it was around Bradenton, there was a wind gust up to about 54 miles per hour. So certainly some strong wind gusts, but the main concern tonight, not so much the wind associated with this storm, but it's the heavy rain, those really heavy bands of rain. And another possibility, and this I think really is going to be the main concern over the next few hours into the overnight and early morning, the possibility of a couple of spin-up tornadoes along that band. That's why there are tornado watches in effect for a large portion of Central Florida, including the Florida Gulf Coast. I mean, you see some of those heavier bands there. It doesn't take much to get a brief spin up and you can get a tornado. So that's why it's important to be paying attention to the storm during the overnight hours. Again, we're not talking about widespread strong winds associated with this, but some very heavy rainfall, some flooding, and the possibility of a tornado in some of those heavier bands.
See a lot of hashtag HeyJB, a lot of hashtag HeyJeff comments coming in. We're going to go as fast as we can to get to as many of these as possible here, everybody, out of the Facebook Live comment section. Before we do, check this out here. This is live from Hudson, Florida, one of our many camera crews here across the Tampa Bay area. In fact, we'll just kind of go full screen here for you so that we can show you what it's looking like out there. Of course, one light providing us with this view here as far as one of the coastal communities here on the northern end of Tampa Bay. Seeing some rain, seeing some wind here, but not the catastrophic stuff that we have, of course, seen in previous hurricane seasons here in the state of Florida. Again, a Category 1 hurricane is Elsa right now, expected to become a tropical storm ahead of landfall later on today, this Wednesday. Again, great to have Fox 16 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baskin here on the program. Let's get to some of the questions and comments coming in. And this one here from Susan, hashtag HeyJeff. How bad will it get? Pinellas County area. Thank you for staying up to keep us informed. And yeah, of course, it's what we do. It's our job. Pinellas County, Florida, right there to the west of Tampa, the west end really of Tampa Bay, where St. Petersburg is. Jeff, what do we say here for Susan's comment?
We're still staying far enough away from the center of the storm, not expecting hurricane force winds, but still likely for the next few hours, we're still going to get some of those heavier bands of rain. You saw on the radar, it looked like there was another fairly heavy band of rain that was about to come through Pinellas County. So that's likely going to be the worst of it associated with this storm really over the next few hours. So between about, say, from about 1:30 a.m. to about 3:34 a.m. That's likely when we'll get some of the heaviest rains, as well as some of the strongest wind gusts associated with it. And again, I think the tornado threat there is a little bit lower, because typically if you get a tornado associated with a hurricane or a tropical storm, they're a little bit farther out from the center. So I'd be concerned more about that larger curved band from, say, Port Charlotte over towards Lakeland, Port and Newport Richey. That's where I'd be concerned about the possibility of a tornado associated more with that outer band. So it really looks like the next few hours, that next wave that comes on through over the next few hours is going to be the worst of it. And by daybreak, it looks like even though the storm isn't going to be that far away, it's going to be a lot weaker. So still some gusty winds by tomorrow morning, but certainly the worst of it will be over by daybreak for Pinellas.
We've got questions and comments coming in pertaining to Sarasota, Orlando, some other areas here with, again, hashtag HJB, hashtag HF. But let's center in now on Hillsborough County. Of course, Tampa, Florida, we're talking about here for Peter Capote, hashtag HJB. When can we expect the worst in Hillsborough County, Jeff?
Well, for Hillsborough County, again, it's really going to be over the next few hours, really starting to get into the worst of it right now, which is going to be on the northeast and eastern side of that circulation. You already have some of those heavier bands of rain that are coming on through, especially just to the east of Tampa itself. And again, that's where I'd be concerned about some flash flooding, possibly an isolated tornado with that large curved band. But really, again, it looks like it's going to be over the next few hours. So for some areas, I mean, it really isn't going to get a whole lot worse than it is right now. But closer to the coast, say closer to St. Petersburg, things will likely get a little bit worse once we get over the next few hours. But for Tampa, the metro area, for the most part, thinking that this is really about as bad as it's going to get. Some of these strong wind gusts, some of these bands of heavy rain are going to continue through the early morning hours, likely starting to get it better around 4 or 5 a.m.
Looking here live, everybody, at Hudson, Florida here. And interesting to note, you see the rain, it's coming down here quite a bit, and raining diagonally, as you would expect here when we're talking about a Category 1 hurricane. Elsa, not expected to be Category 1 hurricane for that much longer. Could get an update here in the hours ahead. Again, expected to downgrade to a tropical storm before landfall somewhere in Levy County on the Nature Coast here in Florida. Let's get to Jay Bay, Smiley Michelle Thane. That's a long name. Hashtag HJB, what will Orlando experience tonight or tomorrow, Jeff?
Well, still, that I'd be concerned about that outer band of heavy rain moving on through for late tonight, early tomorrow morning, say around 3, 4, 5 in the morning. That heavier band is going to move on through, and that's going to bring the potential for some flooding and, again, some tornado threats. But a little bit later during the overnight and early morning hours for Orlando than, say, the Tampa area. Still concerned about that heavier band of rain. Based on the direction of motion, that real heavy rain may wind up staying just to the west of Orlando. So I'm thinking the west side of Orlando, greater threat for some heavy rain. Once you get onto the eastern side of Orlando, probably not a whole lot. You're going to be in that cutoff where you really may not get into any of those real heavy bands of rain surrounding the storm.
Again, Jeff Baskin joining us from Fox 16, chief meteorologist there. Jeff, did we take this one yet? And I'm getting out of order here with some of the questions we have in our queue, asking about Sarasota.
I believe we talked about that briefly. I don't think that's the same question, though.
Zach asking here just for an update on Sarasota.
Yeah, Sarasota, again, actually, it looks like the worst is occurring right now for Sarasota. This is about as bad as it's going to get. You can see that actually Sarasota in between those two really heavy bands right now, the one moving through Port Charlotte and just north, and then the other one just offshore, the worst of it from near Sarasota over towards Bradenton. So Sarasota, the next 1 to 3 hours will likely be the worst of it. Not a whole lot worse than it is right now, with some of those the heavy rain is going to continue. Some strong wind gusts up to about 50 to 60 miles per hour. I'm not expecting those hurricane force wind gusts to actually make it onshore, though.
How about this one from Kimberly Harris here, hashtag AGB, asking basically nothing much left of it with a question mark here. And Jeff, looking here at max event rate, there's still considerable activity here on radar. So while the we have a potential weakening that is going to occur here. We're still very much in this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's nothing left of it. We still have a fairly potent, at least a very strong tropical storm or a borderline hurricane. And really, as far as impacts go, there's not much difference between a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm and a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane. I mean, that's just you got to draw the line somewhere. But as far as impacts, 70 or 75 miles per hour is about the same. The good thing about this, as far as Tampa, is this is moving a little bit farther offshore, so you're really not getting into the worst of this. If this was coming, say, even if it was at the intensity it is now, and it was coming straight into Tampa Bay, it would still be a problem. It would bring some significant storm surge flooding. It would likely be quite a bit worse than what you're getting right now. So you're really not getting the brunt of the storm in Tampa, which is good because we want the core of it, we want the worst of it to stay offshore and give this a little bit more opportunity to weaken before it actually starts to move inland. And it looks like, as far as the strengthening trend, that's already started to come to an end.
Mercedes here asking, hashtag, hey, Jeff, how long will the rain last in Venice, Florida? And they're probably looking here at a clearing here, Jeff, in the hours ahead.
Very likely, because once we get into the next few hours, that heavier rain band is going to start to push north. Again, the hurricane, as it looks on radar, is not particularly well organized. It consists of this two main parts of the storm right now. The large outer band on the east side, which is actually on the east side of the Tampa area, and then that inner band, which right now is very close to Bradenton and Sarasota. So that's where we have the worst of it right now as far as that band. And once that moves on by, conditions are going to rapidly start to improve by the time we get into early tomorrow morning.
That's a live picture here, everybody, from, and I want to make sure that I have this right here, everybody. This is a live picture from, oh, actually, yeah, this is Hudson, Florida. I'll make sure I have this right. We just had a commenter here in the Facebook Live comment section ask about Hudson, Florida. There it is. We're about to lose this shot here. So Hudson, right there, a coastal community here in the Tampa Bay area. That's the last we're going to get a look at it here, at least for the next hour. Our crews are now swapping out gear, making sure that that they have everything that they need for the hours ahead here, everybody in the Tampa Bay area. How about Denise's comment here? Hashtag AJB, I'm a trucker. Just wanted to know if it's a good idea to deliver my load in Kissimmee, Orlando. Would it be safe to do so? I'm worried. And, for truckers on the road, when we're talking about, tropical storm force winds and hurricane force winds, Jeff, transportation, this is a good question here from Denise.
You might be better off waiting until tomorrow morning, although it depends on exactly where you're coming from, because actually Kissimmee is not necessarily going to get hit all that hard with that outer band staying just a little bit to the west. But you don't really want to have to drive through that outer band if you don't have to, because even though the winds won't be too strong for driving, there'll be some blinding rainfall. There could be some flooding on the highways, and there also is some tornado risk associated with that as well. So I really wouldn't travel through that area tonight. I wouldn't take if I was to travel from, say, Tampa, the Tampa Bay area to Kissimmee right now, I would really be tempted to wait until tomorrow morning or at least daybreak before I would do that. Let that system get a little bit farther north and let that very heavy band of rain associated with the hurricane get a little bit farther away.
We got a great question coming in here, Jeff, and this is something that you and I were talking about before the stream began. This comment that just came in a moment ago from Dwayne Ward here asking, hashtag HeyJB, how bad is the storm surge in the Bay here? And you were talking about, you were evaluating some model data that shows just what we're talking about here as far as storm surge impacts.
Well, the National Hurricane Center actually runs these computer models and figures out where the storm surge is going to be and how bad it's going to be based on the strength of the storm and its direction. So it takes a lot of factors into account. And I do have from the 11 o'clock advisory, the latest storm surge estimates for Tampa Bay, and they're really not too bad. Just give me a second. I will put this up. But this shows you the colored areas will show you where there is a storm surge expected. So here's the Tampa Bay area. and you really don't see a lot of storm surge except for some low-lying areas that are surrounding the bay. You can see near MacDill Air Force Base, just on the south side, right in the bay. A little bit of storm surge. That's about 1 to 2 feet in that blue to a green shaded area near the bridge. A little bit more of a storm surge, but again, you're really not in a area that there's anything. It's just mostly swamp right there. You can see that when I take that overlay off, it's really not affecting anybody all that much. Now, as we go a little bit closer to the coast, that's where the storm surge is a little bit higher. We'll take you to Bel Air Beach, and you can see that yellow area. That's where the storm surge could be greater than 3 feet and possibly up to 6 feet. But again, that is mainly along the beaches. Notice that storm surge not really expected to make it very far inland, although some storm surge will likely get into the barrier islands, maybe a foot, possibly 2 feet in a couple of spots. But that's about it as far as the storm surge. It'll take you south a little bit along A1A. And so you can see pretty much the same thing where the storm surge flooding is really concentrated along the coast, not so much inland. So that's the good news associated with this. It doesn't look like storm surge is really going to affect a whole lot of property here. The Tampa Bay area, Florida, most of Florida is really, they're prepared for weaker storms. Tropical storms, lower end hurricanes really aren't so much of a problem when it comes to storm surge. But when you start to get into those category 3 hurricanes and higher, that storm surge can make it much farther inland and to populated areas, and that storm surge can be quite significant. But as we take a wider look at the storm surge, we'll go north a little bit, where the storm is likely to make landfall tomorrow. And you can see that a little bit more of a storm surge here. But again, for the most part, it's going to be along swampy areas, unpopulated coastland. There's not really a whole lot of property that's going to be affected by the actual storm surge flooding. So some good news there. This overall is not going to be a major system for a storm surge threat. But again, that being said, you can still get some very heavy rainfall associated with those bands of rain. And even though you may not have storm surge flooding, you certainly can have rainfall flooding from those bands that may not move all that quickly, and they keep dumping that very heavy tropical rain over the same areas. And you can wind up with several inches of rain in a short period of time and wind up with some inland freshwater flooding from rainfall.
Our computer tapping into Jeff's computer, bouncing it back to our computer, to your mobile device there as far as some of the storm surge impacts here. Cassidy here, #KJB, can we please shout out to our first responders? My hubby is out there tonight. I certainly can. Give a big shout out here for folks that are out there in Hurricane Elsa tonight. How about this question, interesting here from Brenda? Maybe we can give some sort of not the crazy long 30-minute answer to this question, but Brenda here asking #KJF, #KJB, why is the eye not defined here? And really, there isn't really an eye to the system at all. It's really just a center of circulation, right, Jeff?
It's more of a center. There has been some eye wall structure on the eastern side of it, but it certainly doesn't extend all the way around that center of circulation. There's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason is there's actually some wind shear over the storm. In the upper levels of the atmosphere, winds are blowing out of the southwest, and that keeps blowing a lot of the thunderstorms on towards the east side, and it makes it very difficult for the storms to redevelop on the west side. So because of the storm shear or the wind shear associated with the storm or over the storm, really it's just having trouble maintaining any sort of eye wall. And that's good news, because if it can't really form an eye wall, it can't really strengthen very much more than it is right now. A lot of times tropical storms don't have a well-defined eye. Even a low-end hurricanes or a low-end category 1 hurricane may not have a well-defined eye. So it's really not uncommon for weaker tropical systems to not have a well-defined eye.
Let's go up to Hernando County for this next question from Aaron Hicks, #HeyJeff. What do you think we're in for tonight in Spring Hill. And again, that's an area that not necessarily near where we're expecting a landfall event to occur as far as the Cedar Key area, Levy County, but really still Spring Hill is going to feel some of this storm here, Jeff.
Well, very likely some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall, but it really doesn't look like this is going to be a major threat for the Spring Hill area. Really by tomorrow morning, things will be starting to clear out. So some good news there. For south of the Tampa Bay area, within the next couple of hours, things will actually start to improve. But north of Tampa Bay, that's where things will continue to go downhill. And again, I'm mainly concerned about that heavy band of rain just offshore from Bradenton and Sarasota, because that may try to clip St. Petersburg over the next few hours as it moves towards the north. And it looks like the system may be actually moving just slightly east of due north, and that is consistent with the forecast track, with just a very subtle bend towards the east as opposed to a due north motion.
And again, we're gonna start to let me just say, we only have a few more minutes here, everybody, on Tracking the Tropics with Fox 16 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baskin joining us here, everybody. Again, a friend of the program who's been on several episodes before of Tracking the Tropics. We're gonna make this a last call for your hashtag Hey Jeff, hashtag Hey JB questions and comments here. And I believe that we just had this one come in here. From Emily here in the Facebook Live comment section, hashtag AJB. I live in Oldsmar and I have power. So a lot of folks chiming in, letting us know that they have power, and that's good, of course. And power outages were to be expected, Jeff. But, the crews here in Florida, they are ready to go as far as restoring power quickly.
Yeah, Florida can be very well prepared for that, because a lot of power lines now are actually underground, and that helps a lot as far as preventing power outages. And with winds of 30, 40, 50 miles per hour in gusts, I wouldn't expect there to be really widespread power outages. Once those gusts get to 60 and 70 miles per hour, then those power outages start to become a lot more widespread. But it's unlikely that we're really going to get any sort of widespread wind gusts over 60 to 70 miles per hour moving inland. Any of those bands, if there are any hurricane force winds at all, it's within that band, that red area that you see just offshore from Bradenton, where there may be some sustained winds of 70, possibly locally 75 miles per hour with some higher gusts. But outside of that, those wind gusts likely not getting above 60.
Polk County, Lakeland, we hear you. A lot of questions coming in from Polk County. Genesis here, hashtag Hey Jeff. What about Polk County in all capital letters? And then Phyllis here, hashtag Hey Jeff. Polk County weather predictions, please. So if you're talking about Polk County here, everybody, Lakeland, Jeff, what do we say?
My concern with Polk County is that outer band of rain that you see from near Lakeland, just to the east of the Tampa downtown area and east of St. Petersburg. My main concern right now would be flooding associated with that, because that heavy band of rain just keeps sitting in the same spot. That heavy rain just keeps moving over the same areas. So parts of Polk County, I'd be concerned about some heavy rain and flooding, and also a potential tornado threat associated with that band over the next few hours through at least about, say, 5 to 6 a.m.
Let's get to this next comment here. It might just take us a second to load this up here, everybody. Once we have it here. Yvette's comment, we're trying to load it in here. And Yvette Kane, you're asking about, of course, Tarpon Springs, one of my favorite communities here in the Tampa Bay area. Tarpon Springs, of course, right here on our coastline here. Let's get there. It is. Okay, Yvette Kane, hashtag HJB. Tarpon Springs area. What can we expect, and how bad is it going to be north of Clearwater here, everybody, as far as really that area between Newport Richey and Clearwater? What do we say here for Tarpon Springs? There could be some flooding there, again, talking about some of those coastal communities there on the Gulf Coast side of Florida, Jeff.
There could be some flooding. Again, I'm concerned with Tarpon Springs. I'm concerned with that more inner band just offshore from Bradenton that's moving closer to St. Petersburg, because as that band starts to rotate a little bit farther north, if it moves on shore, that's going to bring a period of some 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, as well as some very heavy rainfall, especially beginning within about the next 2 to 3 hours. So things around Tarpon Springs probably going to go downhill a bit more
Jeff,
over the next
Jeff, I'm
couple
going
of
to hop in
hours
here for
before
a
they get
second.
better.
Check this out. We just got this in. This is from Bayshore Boulevard. This is 8 on your sides. Melanie Michael there looking like she's really struggling here. So this is Tampa, Florida here, folks, and a dear friend of mine who looks like that she is getting ready for a live report here on WFLA News Channel 8 and kind of struggling here a little bit. And, again, there was a question earlier about whether or not that this is, that there's nothing left of this, Jeff, and this clearly illustrates here as we look here at Melanie getting ready for her live report. We might try to listen in here in a second that this is still impacting the Tampa Bay area quite a bit.
Well, it sure is. Some very strong wind gusts over the next couple of hours associated with that, especially in exposed areas. Now, if you're a little bit inland, I mean, she's in a very exposed area right now. So those wind gusts are going to be quite a bit stronger. But once you're in a sheltered area, those winds may not seem so strong at all, especially you get behind a couple of buildings or there's a lot of trees around. There's something to block that wind a little bit.
And let's listen in here for Melanie's live report.
As well as the rain. Again, we've been talking about it raining sideways, and that is certainly the condition right now on Bayshore Boulevard. As you can take a look around me, it is completely deserted tonight. And some of the dramatic video we're seeing at this hour, you can see the white caps right here crashing into the bay. We know that low tide was earlier tonight, but we know that high tide will be coming soon as the conditions continue to deteriorate here along Bayshore Boulevard in South Tampa. Of course, flooding is a major concern. We saw some of the areas pooling with water earlier tonight, and at this hour we are not just seeing too much of that right now, just along the sidewalks and along Bayshore Boulevard in certain pockets. So we will continue to monitor the situation tonight. I'm Melanie Michael, live along Bayshore Boulevard on Tampa the Night. 8 on your side.
And a great job there by Melanie. Of course, one of my favorite people here at WFLA News Channel 8, without question. And really, Jeff, I mean, that speaks volumes to what's going on right there on the ground here, right here in Tampa. That's not too far away from where I'm located right now here in Tampa, Florida.
Well, sure, that's certainly consistent with some of those 40 and 50 mile per hour wind gusts that we've seen around here. If you're trying to stand around in the 35 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts over 50 to 55, that's challenging. That's pretty hard right there. That doesn't seem like it's that strong, but it really is. People tend to overestimate wind speeds when they see them or feel them. They go, that must be a 70 or 80 mile per hour wind, when in reality, no, it's probably more like 40 or 50 miles per hour. A 50 mile per hour wind is certainly something to be reckoned with if you're out there trying to deal with it.
Again, Fox 16 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baskin joining us here, everybody. Denica with this very kind comment, hashtag Hey Jeff, thank you for keeping us all up to date on this story. Thank you to all the workers and emergency personnel and electric companies on standby. Thank you all. And really, I just want to take a moment just to thank all of the meteorologists and reporters that we've had tonight on, tonight, it's actually into Wednesday now, on Tracking the Tropics. Folks like John Bernier, Addis, Juklo, Ian Oliver, so many of the great team members. Jeff Baskin joining us from Fox 16 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Jeff, what are you going to monitor here in the hours ahead as we wrap up this edition of Tracking the Tropics?
The two main things with that outer band, the potential for tornadoes, that would be a little bit farther inland. And with that more inner band that is getting very close to it's getting very close to St. Petersburg, towards Largo and Clearwater. So I'd be very concerned about that with some of those stronger winds, and again some of that coastal surge with some of that surge as we saw earlier on the storm surge forecast, up to about 5 to 6 feet along the immediate coastline, with some lesser amounts a little bit inland in some of the populated in the barrier islands. That's really where we're expecting things to be the worst right now. Very close to the St. Petersburg area, just right along the immediate coastline, north of Tampa Bay, with that inner part of the circulation. It looks like that's actually maybe what's left of the eastern side of that eye wall. So if there are any hurricane force wind gusts, that's where it would be.
And really quickly here before we wrap up, because we've been talking about how fortunate we've been to this point here, everybody. Amanda Evans saying hashtag AJB, any tornadoes spotted? And I can just say from WFLA's perspective, no tornadoes spotted at this time. So Jeff, really quickly, I mean, just very fortunate with where we are as far as spin up tornadoes, those possibilities occurring here with Hurricane Elsa?
Haven't seen a whole lot of that, and that's good. Hopefully it stays that way. But because of that potential, there is a tornado watch in effect through tomorrow morning for much of Florida. So still some tornado potential for the overnight, but a good sign that we really haven't seen too many of them so far.
I'm just being told here, everybody, as far as tornadoes go, there could be a tornado warning here imminent. We're going to get going here on Tracking the Tropics and get ready to bring you any updated information. But before we do, really like to thank Fox 16 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baskin, who's been on several editions of Tracking the Tropics so far this year, going back to 2020's record-breaking year as well. So a big thank you to Jeff Baskin for joining us here from Little Rock, Arkansas. JB Buno here with you at WFLA in Tampa, Florida. More ahead in the hours ahead on WFLA News Channel 8 here in Tampa, Florida. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.